Welcome back to Nintendo Academy. I am Mike Perez, and I know we've heard so much about the new Nintendo Switch OLED, but in this video, I'm gonna teach you or tell you about 5 things you probably did not know about the new Switch OLED. Or at least I hope you didn't know. Not then, yeah. Before we get into this top 5 things you did not know about the Switch OLED, if we are just meeting, I am Mike Perez, and here at Nintendo Academy, we talk about everything Nintendo. So if you love Nintendo, want to learn more about Nintendo, or just want to join the best Nintendo community on YouTube, consider subscribing and clicking that bell so you don't miss another Nintendo Academy video. And remember guys, that clip feature is right there so you guys can clip the best part of this video and share it with your friends, your families, your grandmother, even your pets. So we have heard a lot about the new Nintendo Switch OLED. What we know so far is that it has a 7-inch OLED screen, which is a lot better than LCD. It has better speakers and that little flappy thingy in the back so you can kind of lay it back. You know, when you play on dock mode or on table mode, you kind of like lay it flat until it's like all the way towards the table, and then you can kind of make it stand up a little more. And I think I'm explaining this well, right? That little flappy thingy in the back. Other than that, guys, what else did you know about the new Nintendo Switch? Well, the box is different, right? And it also comes in white now. All right, so here are the 5 things you did not know and Nintendo forgot to list in a way on the website. Number 1, did you know that OLED screens use less power than LCD screens? Okay, let me explain. In a nutshell, LCD screens use a backlight to illuminate their pixels, while OLED's pixels actually produce their own light. You might hear OLED's pixels called emissive, while LCD tech is transmissive. The light of an OLED display can be controlled on a pixel by pixel basis. So that's why you get richer blacks on an OLED screen, because the pixels are turned completely off. So they're not emitting any light and they're not using any power. So when you're playing a game, if you go into a dark cave, then you're probably gonna end up saving a lot more battery than if you stay in that cave, you know, for the rest of the game and not move anywhere else. But yeah, basically, that's what's gonna happen with the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo has on their website that the battery life is just about the same on every Switch, and continues to be the same depending on the game you play. But if we put this into perspective, the OLED screen actually is gonna save you battery in the long run. So when you play games in where we have deep blacks and we have other colors that don't use that much energy, that means that this OLED screen will actually save you some battery time and extend your battery life for your Nintendo Switch. So yeah, that's the first thing. The OLED screen can actually save you some battery life. All right, so let's get to number 2 of the things you probably didn't know about the Nintendo Switch OLED. This one you probably didn't know, or maybe you did. I would say there's like a 60-40% chance you did or did not. But did you know that you are actually missing out, or you are losing a USB port from the Nintendo Switch OLED? Yep, Nintendo removed the back USB port so they can add that LAN port for your internet connection, so that when you play games according to Nintendo, you'll get a better connection with that. Yeah, so apparently you lose a connection there. No more USB there, so you only have the 2 USBs on the outside of your Nintendo Switch dock, and no more USB on the inside. You'll have your HDMI, you'll have your USB-C connector for your charger, and you'll have the LAN port on that. Now stay tuned towards the end of the video so I can give you what I feel is the reason that Nintendo added this LAN port there, it's not just to give you a better connection to what you have now. Okay, so just stay tuned to the end of the video and I'll give you my theory on why Nintendo made this change or added this feature to the Switch OLED. Alright, so moving on to thing you didn't know, number 3. Hopefully you didn't know number 3. Did you know that the Switch OLED might not fit with your regular Nintendo Switch case? Yeah, so if you have a case, you know, one of those little rubber cases that you use to kind of protect your Switch, it might not fit there because the Nintendo Switch OLED is actually a little longer than the Nintendo Switch. Not by a lot, but by a little bit. Let me tell you exactly right now. So as you see here, the Nintendo Switch, of course, the Switch OLED is 4 inches high, 9.5 inches long, and 0.55 inches deep. Versus the Nintendo Switch, which is of course the same 4 inches high and 9.4 inches long. So that means that it's a point there that it's not matching, you know, 9.5 and 9.4. So the Nintendo Switch OLED is just a little bit longer. But yeah, you know how sometimes these companies make these cases to fit your Nintendo Switch very snug, right? So maybe some of these cases will not completely fit the brand new Nintendo Switch OLED, and they might have to kind of make new ones for it to make sure that, you know, for example, satisfied grips, they are very snugged in there to make sure that you have a good grip, it's not shaky or anything like that, and it's hugging your Nintendo Switch well. So in this case, the Nintendo Switch OLED is actually a little longer than the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, so there you go. That's fact number 3. Nintendo Switch OLED is actually just a little bit longer. Therefore, your old case might not fit your new Nintendo Switch OLED if you are upgrading to the new one. Alright, so number 4 of the 5 things you probably didn't know about the Nintendo Switch OLED. Did you know that the Nintendo Switch OLED is a lot heavier than the Nintendo Switch? Yes, it is a lot heavier. Not only is it just a teensy bit wider, but it's also heavier. So let's go ahead and check this out here, and I can show you how much heavier it is. So the regular Nintendo Switch is approximately 0.88 pounds, almost 1 pound, and the Nintendo Switch OLED is 0.93 pounds. It's closer to a pound than the Nintendo Switch. That means that you might not think it's a difference, but when you're holding that Nintendo Switch in your hands for a very long time, you're gonna start feeling a little tired and a little sore on your hand just because it's heavier than the Nintendo Switch. So in order to get rid of this, or in order to make it easier for you to hold the Nintendo Switch OLED, you can grab one of those cases just like Satisfy produces, the one that has like the grip in the back, the ones that make it easier for you to, well, you know what, one of these cases right here, this case, that'll make it easier for you to hold the Nintendo Switch OLED. If you're playing a long game, your hands won't get that tired. But if you're holding this Nintendo Switch OLED like that, just, you know, for a long period of time, you're gonna get tired because it's almost a pound. It's pretty heavy. Alright, so this is number 5 of the 5 things you probably didn't know about your Nintendo Switch. And I hope you didn't know this one. Did you know that Nintendo is not really telling us everything that the Nintendo Switch OLED can do? So yeah, did you know that we don't know everything just yet? We just have to get that Nintendo Switch OLED in our hands to see what it's actually capable of doing. Because right now, believe it or not, I know I don't like talking about you know, the specs inside, like the chips and the, you know, stuff inside. So in 2019, Nintendo upgraded the processor, the Tegra chip, to the Tegra X1 chip. Okay, I don't know about you, but I used the best tool possible to man. I went ahead and Googled the Tegra X1 chip 4K, and this is what it said. Is the Tegra X1 capable of 4K? Tegra X1 only supports 4K video playback, and we know that Nintendo did some customization to this chip, or they made some customizations per Nintendo's requirements for the Nintendo Switch. But this doesn't say what type of customization was inside this Tegra chip. All we know is that it's a modified Tegra chip, but we don't know if it's the actual Tegra X1 chip has been modified, or maybe the Nintendo software from Nintendo is not using the full capability of this Tegra 1X chip. And I don't know what I'm talking about here, but maybe Nintendo with an update to the software can maybe update the Nintendo Switch OLED and allow us to play our games in 4K, or maybe just give us an updated dock later on so that we can go ahead and upscale our games to 4K. Anything is possible, and believe it or not, I feel like that's one major possibility Nintendo could do later on. They really don't have to release a new Nintendo Switch Pro. All they have to do is release a dock that is able to export our games, you know, in 4K, basically upscale to 4K, you know, which is not really 4K resolution, but at least it upscales it to 4K, and your TV can do the rest of the job and make the games look good and better. And yeah. Let's go ahead and rewind a little bit back to number 2, because I have a feeling of why Nintendo did this with you know, taking away the USB and putting that LAN port in there. You know, LAN port works best with online games, and it works best with streaming. When it comes to streaming movies, when it comes to streaming games, when it comes to streaming, so LAN port is synonymous with streaming. You'll get better videos, you'll get higher frame rates, you can actually download videos faster, and this is what I think is going to happen, and why Nintendo added that LAN port to the back of the Nintendo Switch. I believe that Nintendo will eventually release a streaming service with the entire library of games, not for the Switch, but every console that came before. Yes, I'm talking about of course, we have the NES and the SNES, but then we have the Nintendo 64, we have the Nintendo GameCube, we have the Nintendo Wii, we have the Wii U, and of course, Wii U games are being ported like crazy over to the Switch. But any other console that came before that, even the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy SP, and you know, all of these consoles, I feel like Nintendo is getting ready to port all of these consoles, and we're gonna be able to stream them just like Microsoft is doing with their xCloud, and just like Google is doing with Stadia. I think Nintendo is going that route, and they want to make sure that we have a good connection so that we can stream the games. LAN port always makes streaming a whole lot better than Wi-Fi connection. So I feel like we're headed in that route. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And yeah, that was my top 5 things you probably didn't know about the Nintendo Switch OLED. Make sure to like this video. It really does help the channel a lot. And leave your comment down below. And did you know any of the things that I just mentioned here about the 5 things for the Nintendo Switch OLED? Did you know? Let me know below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I am Mike Perez with Nintendo Academy.